that. Some stuff up. We all good?
Got it. Sweet.
Okay. So we've had a fuck up with the Wi-Fi and the internet, so we're just gonna bodge it and see what happens, and yeah, just see how it goes. So we have Mr. Finlay Carmichael. Finlay, introduce yourself, mate. Tell us who you are, what you do, and if there's
So,
anything interesting about yourself, tell us that as well.
well, the most interesting thing is I am originally from Ballamory. So, if you've ever seen the kids' TV program Ballamory, that's where I'm from. And my girlfriend absolutely hates it when I tell people that. She's like, "Shut up." But I'm from Ballamory. Online coach. Me and James work together. Not work together, but we're in sort of one of the same coaching programs. I help ambitious, driven individuals look, feel, and perform at their best. Ultimately, not just giving them a body they can feel proud of, but helping them skyrocket their confidence and prove to themselves they're capable of more. So a lot of the time, it's not people that are necessarily massively out of shape, but people that want to be the best that they can be across like physically, personally, and professionally. They just feel quite comfortable and they want to sort of prove to themselves that they're capable of more. That's me. Who's James?
Well, first of all, I didn't even know Ballamory was a real place. I thought it was a.
It's not. It's not actually called Ballamory. It's called Tobermory, but it is a real place. There you go. PC Plum and co.
It's the multicolored houses, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Oh, excellent. No, I didn't know that at all, mate.
There you go.
So everyone listens to me, know who I am. So James Piercy, Rise and Conquer coach, and I help guys challenge themselves out of their daily routine. So with their body, their brain, their confidence, their mental health, and get them thriving with all of those different positions. And yeah, I don't think there's anything interesting about me apart from that I live nowhere near Ballamory. It's by the sea in Worthing. Anyone that knows Brighton, it's just down the road from that, so nobody else knows where Worthing is. Interesting facts about me. I did the world's strongest triathlon this year. I think it's the first person to ever do it. You have to Google it because somebody might have done it before, but it's a marathon, a strongman competition, and a 100k bike ride back to back. So I could be the first person ever to do it. That's all I got. So what I want to do, mate, is just chuck in a few questions. Firstly, we'll go in with a big one. What does Rise and Conquer mean to you?
To me, what does rise and conquer mean to me? Well, a tricky one. A very good question. But I would say rise and conquer. Well, you give me what you think, and then I'll give you my opinion on it.
So I've asked a lot of clients this, and what it's come down to in kind of one sentence is becoming who you know and want to be. That's kind of like the main sort of gist of what the last sort of 5 or 6 people have said. So like from where you are rising up to that person that you know and want to be.
Okay. So what would you say transitioned you from where you were to where you want to be?
I think personally, it's down to a lot of it's down to accountability with guys. I think most guys that I generally speak to in the gym, they think I can do it myself. They'll go and train themselves and think, yeah, I am doing it, but they don't. They just stay stagnant. They're not actually improving. They're not actually pushing themselves out of the boundaries. They're turning up. They're hitting the same bench press every single week, for example, never improving it, never progressing it. And I think that's what a lot of people do with their lives as well. Like just literally happy, turning up, going along, and not being uncomfortable. It's just they're comfortable what they're doing, and they've never been pushed outside of that bubble. That's what it kind of means to me. And just
Okay.
just pushing it well beyond where you thought you could go, and yeah, and nothing's impossible.
So with that, or with you, what would you say took you specifically from where you were to where you are now?
Oh, you're asking me the questions now, right? I think mentally it was when I was younger. So I went through a thing where my granddad died, and that was a big thing for me. Long story short, I had to attempt CPR until the ambulances came that kind of messed me up quite a bit, and I didn't really know why I was messed up for so long. I thought it was just kind of like grieving. Turned out it went into PTSD, depression, lots of drinking, started taking drugs, steroids, all that kind of thing, just as like kind of like an out. And training was like the way that I could be who I wanted to be, like just turn up, train, not having to worry about anything. And then going to see a therapist that later down the line, like 5, 6 years later, that was the thing that realized to me, like, this is the thing that's holding you back. Like your mental state, like your physical state's good, your mental state isn't where it needs to be. That's what kind of got me to push and challenge myself to help myself mentally to then be able to push on to do all the other things that I've achieved kind of since then, I think.
Yeah, I always think you need to get to that like point. Like that's probably your why, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
just
yeah. And I think before then, when I was a PT, it was kind of like, okay, how hard can we beast someone? How hard can we make someone feel sick? That was kind of like the mentality. Like the people that I grew up with doing PT, that was what all the other PTs did at the gym that I was at originally. So I thought, well, this must be what it is, because you don't get taught that in
yeah.
college. It's kind of like, here's your certificate, go away. And it was like, right, oh, I've made this person sick. I've made this person ill. They can't walk down the stairs, that kind of thing. That was what I thought PT was. And then obviously learning about all the other things as well. You've got the mental side is bigger than the physical side. So if the mental side's affecting you, you're never going to be in your peak physical state, I don't think, because there's always going to be something holding you back.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I always think like the physical almost allows you to train the mental, and it's like pushing yourself beyond the point where you think you can't do anymore. And like, so I did you. So you'll have been exactly the same with like the strongest try. I did even like a half marathon last year, and the training was not necessarily it was hard physically, but it was more like the mental side. And I think that's where people get probably the most out of things. They think they're coming in to like look a certain way, but it's more so like to feel a certain way and improve in terms of like the mental side. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Just going back to that, what was the reason you started training?
Um, so I've always played rugby, and I it's difficult because I've always played rugby, but I didn't necessarily go to the gym or anything like that. And I remember one point, me and a group of boys like that I played rugby with, we went to France on like a rugby trip, and basically we went into the gym, and none of us had really been into a gym before, and like we were playing with all these guys who are more like playing at a higher standard than us. And we went in, and I remember the coach sort of looked at us and was like, "Oh, where's your program?" And we were like looking at each other like, "Oh, the fuck's a program?" He's talking about Ballamory again, and it was he was obviously talking about a gym program, but we were like, "No, we've never been in a gym. Like, what do we do basically?" And so like that's where it first like that awareness started for me, and then I went to like a few years later, I went to college and stuff, started getting into it then. And then I properly got into it. So basically, I was living with my girlfriend at the point. Then we split up, and I basically moved to another side of the island to run a sort of hotel with my dad, like a family run business. And at that point, all I was doing was working. So like training was almost like my out. And what I found was like the more time, energy, and effort I put into me, the better I felt. Not just in terms of physically, but in terms of like mentally. And it gave me something to sort of really focus on, something that I could control. And therefore that sort of then gave me that sort of confidence in myself, that self-belief to go and do like a PT course. So I went and stayed 8 weeks on a mate's sofa, and then basically things got like escalated from there. But the biggest thing was number one, probably rugby and focusing on that. And then number two, like just being in that hotel and being able to sort of focus on something that I could control within that.
No, class. And would you say that it wasn't anything to do with how you looked at the time? Do you think it was just purely rugby and mental, or was there an aesthetic thing to it as well, i.e., getting girls?
Um, so there probably was like an aesthetic part to it, but at that point in time, it was in my head, but it wasn't really like a massive part. It was more so just something that I could focus on. It maybe started because of like the aesthetic side. I'm wanting to look good and have a six pack and be absolutely massive and whatever else. But then that, like, as many people find, like that quickly transitions away, and it's like not necessarily about how you look, but more so how you feel. And I just found it allowed me to sort of turn up at my best, if you like. Like I just felt so much better after doing it, and therefore that was sort of ingrained as a habit, and it sort of went on from that.
I think
What about you? What would you?
for me, touching on that, like when I first started training, I went with a guy called Connor. We went down to David Lloyd, and it was like we didn't know how to train chest. We didn't know how to train legs. Sorry, it was literally we used to watch a guy, Rob Riches. I don't know if you've heard of him, and we used to watch his YouTube channel. He's a British guy, and it was like chest, arms, 2 hour chest session on a Monday, and it was like literally regimented around trying to be big and trying to be a bodybuilder at the time. And obviously, you don't know what goes into it when you're that young and naive, I think.
Yeah.
Because it was like, right, you've got to eat this food, you've got to eat out of a Tupperware, like just literally following what you see on YouTube. And I think now everything's changed so much. Like, I don't care how I look now, as long as I'm fit, healthy, and I can move and I don't get out of breath. Whereas 10 years ago, it was, okay, well, what do I look like? How big can my arms get? How tight can my t-shirts be?
Yeah.
And all that. So I think everything's like flips 180. And like going back to what you said about the mental side of your half marathon,
mm-hmm.
what have you done up to this point where you've had to sort of like challenge yourself on that? Like what's kind of been the biggest mental challenge like for so far?
For like the half marathon, I would say just probably on the days where it's like the last thing that you want to do. So like, you've got maybe a long run, whether it's on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, at some point of the weekend, and like that you've got this, whatever it is, hour plus run to go and do. It's, you look out the window, it's absolutely pissing it down, it's dark, it's cold, it's wet, it's windy. Like it's really the last thing you want to do. And the big thing that always stands out for me is like just taking that first step, like even just getting your shoes on, just getting changed for it. Then obviously going out the door is that first step, and it's those little decisions that then allow you to make that sort of bigger decision. Because I think a lot of people will see like a half marathon, a marathon, or whatever it is, as like that end point that you've completed it, but it's all the sort of smaller decisions along the way that allow you to get to that point. So getting changed, getting your shoes on, like getting out the door. That was the big thing for me. As soon as you were out, and as soon as you'd started it, like I found that there wasn't really, I wouldn't talk myself out of it once I'd started it, but it was always like beforehand and the lead up to it. That was the easiest place to sort of talk yourself out of it. But for me, it was just like almost like, yeah, that mental battle with yourself of like, go and do it and do what you said you would.
And I think going back, you just touched on it there, like rather than focusing on, well, I've got to go and run, what's the first thing that I have to do? Okay, well, get changed. Okay, cool, yeah. I've done that. That's just broken it down, so you've got less. And it goes back to something, I went to see Ant Middleton last year. I don't know if you've seen him live. He did a thing about someone had to hang in a car, and it was, you had to have your seatbelt on and you had to get dropped in, and it got dropped into this ice cold water and you had to escape. And it's always stuck with me because he said, well, if I told you, right, you've got to get out of this ice cold water from this car that's sinking, you're going to shit yourself. But he said, if it's broken down, okay, well, what do I need to do first? I need to undo my seatbelt. That's the first step. And like, it is like, put your running shoes on. That's the first step. Open your front door and break it all down. And for those of you that don't know, Joe Parrish, who is both of mine and Finley's coach, I remember when I was doing my marathon, I had about just under half left, and I rang him and said, like, I can't do it anymore. And he's like, well, you've just got to put one foot in front of the other. And that was literally all he said. But it's literally just breaking it down.
Mm.
And there was half a marathon left, and he was like, yeah, just put one foot in front of the other and just pick out little what's the word? Little buildings on the way. Oh, there's a McDonald's there. Get to that. That's your first step. Oh, there's a garage there. Get to that. Second step. And it's just literally breaking it down rather than think I've got to run another 12 miles.
Yeah, it's exactly the same with. I always think it's exactly the same with goal setting. Like people will set these big sort of audacious goals, but the actual progress is made through like the decisions that you make on the way. So setting that goal into breaking it up into little smaller goals, breaking that up into monthly goals, breaking that up into weekly and daily goals. Like they're the things that actually allow you to move forward. It's not necessarily focusing on like that big endpoint. And it's like that sort of process of being able to think about the decisions you need to make along the way, and obviously tick the boxes as you go, and then sort of climb the ladder from there.
I think a big thing with that as well, that we'll get loads of people come in January time and say, look, I want to lose 2 stone or 1 stone or whatever. But I think that's too big. I think getting them to realise, right, okay, well, I need to lose the first pound and celebrate that rather than 2 stone. Oh, that's a big step. It's literally going back and focusing on, okay, can I lose a pound this week and celebrate it rather than
like,
I haven't lost a stone yet. I'm a failure. It's literally just breaking it down, I think.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast with James Smith, and he was talking about like how can you create as many small wins as possible, because like you losing a stone and you losing a pound is going to feel exactly the same. Like it doesn't matter; it's going to feel exactly the same to you. So how can you create as many little small successes along the way as you possibly can? Whether that's like in terms of weight, whether that's in terms of training, whether that's in terms of confidence or sort of how you feel, but how can you create as many little small wins across the sort of journey as you possibly can, because that's going to allow you to feel better, feel more positive, feel more motivated, and obviously take more action, leading to sort of more results along the way.
Yeah, no, class. And touching on from that, I wrote down, what do you think of the fitness industry as a whole right now? Where do you see it going? What do you think's good? What do you think's bad? And what do you think could be improved?
Good, bad, and improved. That's a good question. I've never thought of it. I would say good is I would say there's less sort of focus on quick fixes and things like that. I think keto came in like a couple of years ago, but I think that sort of almost like faded away a little bit. You don't really hear much about it. Exactly the same with like low carb diets or anything like that.
I haven't heard Herbalife for a while either.
No, exactly.
I don't get
And
them in my
that was a
DMs
big
anymore.
no, I know. But I think like little quick fixes like that are tending to sort of fade away, and there's not as much of it. So I would say that's a good thing. A bad thing, I would I would say one of the bad things is maybe like I don't know if you've heard of like the healthy at any size, like that sort of movement. Have you heard anything about that?
No, not yet.
So it's basically like people who think that you can be healthy at any size. And like it's not just carrying a few pounds, but like being massively overweight. And like I wouldn't say that that is necessarily a good thing, because I think it's just like an extreme, and it's like I think taking anything to an extreme isn't necessarily a good thing. Exactly the same with like bodybuilding, like low calories or whatever it is. If you think about anything taken to extreme, generally isn't the best. So like healthy any movement thinks that any weight you are, any size, like that's ultimately healthy, and they should
Is
be able
that
to do
both
what you
ends of the
want.
scale? Like, see, like ultra light, sort of talking like not eating, to the other end where it's like morbidly obese. Is that what I mean? Like, kind of
I think
literally
it's
the opposite.
more the morbidly obese side. So it's like the obese side. But I think that's what I was going to say. I think if it was the other way around, and they were talking about someone like super light that didn't like, I think they wouldn't say the same thing about that. So that was going to be one of my points.
It's interesting though, because yeah, like I can see it. I can see how some people would want it. So like
Mm-hmm.
if they're morbidly obese, but they're they're happy, they do move, and they can move freely without sort of like pain, injury, that kind of stuff. But then I can see that side of stuff. But then what's going on inside?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, like what you've just mentioned there, is someone who's overweight, but they can still move fine. They're still healthy in general. Like I think that's absolutely fine. But it's when it goes sort of beyond that point, like that's what I would say is not necessarily a good thing, because it's again going to that sort of extreme side of things. Um, but yeah, exactly. And then it's like, how do you how do you gauge how someone's healthy on the inside? Like, it's very hard to be able to tell.
It goes down to smoking as well. So like some people, they'll smoke all their life and never have anything wrong with them.
Mm.
But you don't know what they're like inside, but they'll live to their 100.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. No, I've not even. I have to look into that a little bit more. What's your improvement?
Improvement. I would say something that we try and do on a daily basis, and it's like trying to improve the standard of coaching. Because I know there's like good quality coaches. Like I know that every single coach within the sort of program that we're in are really good quality coaches. We spend a lot of time like sort of trying to develop ourselves and things like that. But I think ultimately there's still a large number of coaches who maybe aren't the best quality, or maybe they're sort of focused on the wrong thing, maybe sort of short term gain and things like that.
How do you think that needs to be changed?
I would say through. So I don't know about you, but when I did my actual course to sign up for a PT, it was more like a health and safety. It wasn't like anything that you did. I wouldn't say you learned anything sort of massive in it. You've obviously had like tests and assessment and things like that, and you obviously had to do practical exams. But I found it was more like just ticking a box. So I would say the actual education, and then probably having like obviously within the PT industry, there's no like governing body. So potentially sort of having someone that sort of coaches people or sort of comes around and assesses people as they go would be a couple of options. But what were your thoughts on that?
I think the big thing was obviously during COVID, everybody became an online coach, but then the people that were shit and they were charging 10 quid a month or whatever it was, they've all gone because like what's the thing that Warren Buffett says, like when the tide goes out, you can tell he's been swimming naked.
Yeah,
like the people that last are the ones that get results. They know what they're doing. Then I think going back to when you get your qualification, mine was a year at college. So I think it's changed soon after that because people can do it over a weekend now, and to have the knowledge that you need in a weekend to be able to do that with someone, it's not possible. But then it's the same with your driving test. I think like you can pass your driving test, but you don't know how to drive for months after that because you've got to experience it and learn all the other bits and bobs that go with it. But I do think there should be some sort of thing within the industry that checks on people. Because some of the things I've seen online, especially like the influencers as well, that's a whole other subject. But some of the shit that goes on there.
Yeah. And a lot of it's like just based on like subscriptions, like really low cost subscriptions focused on like volume, numbers of people. So obviously like any specificity isn't really going to happen within that. And obviously like people need individualized programs. They need to know what they're doing on a like one-to-one level. Obviously, it's not going to be possible for everyone, but I think a lot of sort of influencers will use like high volume. Like as an example, HIIT training. Not that HIIT training is necessarily bad, but there's obviously like going to be more beneficial approaches than that. I would say.
The other thing as well, going back to that, I listened to a podcast the other day. It was James Smith and Holly Hagan out of Geordie Shore, and she admitted it. She said she used to do that, like doing the low ticket stuff, but she got paid $8,000 to do a post for some sort of tea. And I think if you're that young and you're coming through and you've got a big following, you're going to take the $8,000, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where
that's the thing. It's almost bribery to sell shit.
Yeah. It's almost it. Yeah, you're right to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I think if I was 20 and someone said, right, have this tea, here's $8,000, I would have done it.
Yeah, I think that was that like booty or something.
Booty or something like that. Yeah, skinny tea or something along those lines. I'm aware of time, mate. How long have you got? A couple of minutes?
Yeah, a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Right. Christmas tips for the public for the next 10 days. Top 3.
Christmas tips. Number 1, know that it's the other 51 weeks in the year that is going to give you the progress. So a lot of people will get caught up on like the next sort of week or two. and feeling sort of guilty about it, feeling like they're not making progress, feeling bad. But it's the other 51 weeks in the year that's actually going to be where the progress is made. So number one, just being aware of that. Number two, think about what you're doing consistently. So making sort of good choices. Like, for example, Christmas is going to be, you've got Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, which is the Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And then from Tuesday till Hogmanay, so Tuesday till, or New Year's Day. So
I was going to
Tuesday
say, what's Hogmanay? Is that is that
that's,
from Ballamory?
that's New Year's Eve. That's
Okay.
New Year's Eve in Scotland.
Right. Okay.
So that's Tuesday till Saturday. So making like within that, that's what, 5 days. So you could easily get like 3 good quality sessions. That's giving you basically a day rest between. With that, you can get back into a routine. You can get back into eating well. You can get back into sleeping well, drinking more water. Like there's all of these different habits and things that are going to allow you to feel good going into Hogmanay. And then third of all is probably, if you're training, potentially look at doing like full body sessions. And actually, like over the festive period, what I quite like to do is like almost cardio kind of CrossFit-y style workouts, to allow me to get sort of a good sweat on and just come out of the session feeling better than I did. Whereas often when I find I try and do sort of weight training, I'll then sort of get annoyed that I'm not lifting the weights that I might have done previously and things like that. So I often quite enjoy like just putting together like a 20-30 minute circuit and just basically going and getting a good sweat on. So I would say that is my top 3.
Perfect. One thing I want to touch on quick. Most of the clients that I've spoken to so far, we've done like a 10-day plan, and I've said to them, don't even follow your workout program. Just go and train and just go get a pump, because you think the pump from Christmas Day that you're going to get if you go in a couple of days after is going to be absolutely huge. So you're going to feel good about yourself. Enjoy it. Don't do too much, and don't eat like a dick for the rest of the time. Christmas Day, Boxing Day, do whatever you like. And that's pretty much the plan.
Yeah.
So I think it's simple. People overthink it, I think.
Yeah, just being consistent. It's like some people won't want to train, and for them, absolutely fine. Like some people will want to train, absolutely fine. I think it's just finding something that's going to work for you, but more so than that, being able to, just make sensible decisions, just be sort of consistent, out with obviously Christmas, and just being able to go into 2023 feeling the way you want to feel.
Yeah, no, I like it, mate. I won't ask you any more questions because I know you've got to shoot.
I do have to shoot.
Yeah,
what
that's
are you
cool,
up to
mate. I'm gonna eat before I get told off, and I've got clients tonight, so I'm gonna have a little chill time, take the dog out. She doesn't like going outside when it's cold, so you have to drag her out. And then that'll be it. Yeah, work till 8, and then reset when I get home. What we got for the rest of the day?
I've got I was going to say gym, but I went this morning. No, I've got another couple of calls today actually. So I've got a call at 5:30, which is a success session with one of my clients, and then I've also got someone looking to join the program as well. So that's not till 8. So that's late.
Well, that's a late call. One. That is.
I know.
Blimey.